Hello. Today let's talk about nutrition. So what is nutrition? Nutrition is something that we need to maintain our body, and we are having the food and all for maintaining the nutritional balance in our body, right? So let's check that in detail. So nutrition. What is nutrition actually? It is the process of intake, right? It is the process of intake and utilization. Intake and the utilization of nutrients by an organs. Okay. So basically what is nutrition? It is the process of intake and utilization of nutrients by an organs. Okay. And what do you mean by nutrients? What are the nutrients that we need? We need carbohydrates, protein, fats, vitamins, minerals, water, etc. Right? And why do we need these nutrients? We have to produce energy, growth, repair, maintenance, etc. Okay. So, for example, whenever you eat something, okay, whether it is rice or any curries or vegetables, fruits, etc., these are the nutrients that you will be getting from that. Okay, that is why you have to eat a balanced meal. You have to include everything. You need to include fat, proteins, carbohydrate, vitamins, minerals, and also water. Okay. And why do you need these kind of nutrients? What happens if there is no nutrients in your body? You won't be having any energy. So for moving or to doing something or to go somewhere or even to do your basic things, you need energy, right? So without any nutrients, there won't be any energy production in your body. And what do you think about growth? Just imagine that whenever you were a baby and when you are an adult or a 12-year-old, 10-year-old, etc., your body has a lot of changes, right? That is what we call as growth. So your nails will be growing, your hair will be growing, also your body is growing, right? Entire part of your body is growing. So that also requires some sort of nutrients. And what is repairing? You might have seen that our body might get some sort of wounds or any issues, etc. Right? So the body needs to be repaired constantly. Otherwise, we won't be able to live. Okay, and the old our temperature balances, other body balances, everything is very important. Okay, so that is what we call as maintenance. So this is why we need nutrients. So that is the basic thing about nutrition. Okay. So now we have to focus on how do we take these nutrition. So we mentioned that from food and other things we intake, we will be getting the nutrients. But now we have to check is all the living organisms are taking the nutritions in the same. It won't be like that, right? So basically we have two types. Okay, for nutrition, we have two. One is autotrophic nutrition and the another one is heterotrophic. Okay, so now we are going to learn that in detail. So, the first type is autotrophic. What do you mean by autotrophic nutrition? Basically, the organisms who makes their own food from inorganic substances, right? So the organism make their own food from inorganic substances. So who are the organisms that make food from inorganic substances? Definitely the green plants, right? We know that from the lower classes itself, you might have learned that through the process called the photosynthesis, plants can make their own food using the inorganic substances. And what are the inorganic substances they use here? They use carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, and chlorophyll. Right? It is a pigment in plants. Okay. So is it clear to you? So that is an easy point, right? And the examples are also very clear. Green plants, and there are some bacteria as well. Okay. So this is how the food is basically made in autotrophic nutrition. Okay. And what about heterotrophs? Heterotrophs can't make their own food, right? So definitely they will have to depend. So the organisms depend on others for food. Okay, the organisms depend on others for food. For example, you can take the case of any animals, or even you can take the case of human beings. We have to depend on different plants, right? The fruits we eat, the uh, like uh, the vegetables we eat, or the water we drink. So everything is converted into different type of nutrition, right? So basically for the food, vegetables like fruits and other meat, etc., we are depending on others. So that is heterotrophic nutrition. So we cannot synthesize our own food, right? So like plants, we are not able to synthesize our own food. It doesn't mean that we are cooking and all, okay? It doesn't count. So it's mentioning about the synthesis of food. So the animals, fungi, and most of the bacteria are heterotrophic in nature. So only some was the green plants and some of the bacteria belong to autotrophic group, and all others will be heterotrophic. And here we have mentioned about the photosynthesis, right? The process by which plants make their own food. Now we have to learn about what is photosynthesis. What is photosynthesis? Basically, it is the formation of carbohydrates, right? From what? From carbon dioxide and water. And what are the necessity things for photosynthesis? Sunlight. So, which means in the night time, there won't be any photosynthesis, right? And chlorophyll is also a necessary thing. So, basically, formation of carbohydrates from carbon dioxide, water using the sunlight and chlorophyll is called as photosynthesis. So you might have very familiar with the equation for photosynthesis, that is 6 CO2 plus 6 H2O, right? In the presence of sunlight. And chlorophyll, right? Chlorophyll. It will form C6H12O6 plus 6O. So in this you might have noticed one thing, that is 6O2, right? That is our oxygen. So if there is no photosynthesis, there will be two things that we will be missing. First thing is oxygen. So without oxygen, can we survive here? No, we can't survive, right? And the other thing is our food. So that photosynthesis is a very important process for the sustainability of our living organisms. Okay. So what are the raw materials we mentioned? Carbon dioxide and water. And the required things are sunlight and chlorophyll, right? And what are the output? Glucose. And it is stored as starch. This is glucose. Okay. And the important is source of energy in plants. So this is how plants create their own food. The process is called photosynthesis. Is it clear with everyone? Okay. Now let's check the type of heterotrophic nutrition. So far we have learned a detail about the autotrophic nutrition. Now let's talk about types of heterotrophic nutrition. So we have basically three types of heterotrophic nutrition, that are Holozoic, Saprophytic, and Parasitic. Okay. So let's start with the Holozoic nutrition. So basically the intake and the digestion of solid food inside the body. Okay. So intake and digestion. Intake and digestion of solid food inside the body is called Holozoic. So you can even take human beings as an example for Holozoic. Okay, we are intaking the solid food and it is properly digested inside the body, right? So it will include the process like ingestion, digestion, then absorption. Okay. So you can give any examples like a cow, lion, a rat, or human beings. Okay. Saprophytic nutrition. It is the feeding on dead and decaying, right? Feeding on dead and decaying, right? So you might have noticed like a lot of bacteria, fungi, including mushrooms and all, they are growing on the dead matter, like maybe a dead tree or something like that. Okay. So their digestion is happening like outside the body. Okay. External digestion is there. Then absorption is there. Okay. So external digestion is there. Then the absorption. Okay. So examples are fungi and bacteria. Got it? So these are the examples for saprophytic nutrition. Then we have the parasitic nutrition. What is parasitic nutrition? Feeding on a host without killing it. Right? So there are like plants is also there, animals are also there, which is parasitic in nature. Okay. So what is the method? Lives on or in host, right? And absorb nutrients. So we have a lot of examples like cascata, Lice, right? Lice is the most common example, and everyone can relate. And leech is the tapeworm is there. So all these like organisms are living on someone else's nutrition. Okay, so they will be sucking the nutrition from someone else, the host, and they will be using that for their sustain. Okay, so this is what we have to learn about nutrition. So far what we have discussed, we mentioned what is nutrition, we mentioned about the importance of nutrition, what are the nutrition we need and why we need it. Great. And later on, we mentioned about the methods of nutrition, that is autotrophic and the heterotrophic. And then we saw what is autotrophic and what is heterotrophic. Later, we mentioned how the autotrophs are making food, that is the process of photosynthesis. Later, we mentioned about types of heterotrophic nutrition. There are three types: Holozoic, Saprophytic, and the Parasitic. Okay.